This is the elect lady, and I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel entitled Present Day Truth for Black America. Today's video is entitled Black Genius and Their Achievements You Should Know. Our innovation and ingenuity come from our godlike nature that is hard coded in our DNA as well as linked to our African roots. The slave traders knew exactly the quality of people they were enslaving and sending to the Americas. Today's video will introduce you to beautiful Black minds that made significant contributions to building America, starting at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution and onward via their many inventions. According to the book From Babylon to Timbuktu by Rudolph R. Windsor, our ancestors who were taken from the west coast of Africa during the transatlantic slave trade were industrious and skillful people. They were kings, princes, governors, generals, secretaries, treasurers, revenue agents, judges, architects, engineers, doctors, historians, language interpreters, mathematicians, jewelers, sculptors, masons, carpenters, etc. Almost all of the skills necessary for human survival were conceived and practiced in Africa. The genius of African Americans is nothing new. It dates back to the transatlantic slave trade. This was a systematic and large scale movement of enslaved Africans to the Americas, largely initiated by the Portuguese and Spanish merchants in the late 1500s. As a way to give homage to the genius of our ancestors, let's take a look at the work of Black geniuses here in the Americas you probably didn't learn about in history class. In 1716, an enslaved man called Onesimus, likely of Akan origin from West Africa, pioneered vaccination in America after passing on an age-old knowledge to Cotton Mather, the Puritan minister who had purchased him a decade earlier. Onesimus described to Mather a procedure he had undergone in Africa to prevent smallpox, which involved deliberately introducing material from smallpox sores into a healthy person's skin to induce immunity. Together with a local doctor, Mather successfully put Onesimus' method to the test during a smallpox outbreak in Boston in 1721, paving the way for mass inoculation and British physician Edward Jenner's creation of the first vaccine in 1796. His name, meaning useful or helpful, reflected his role in sharing critical medical knowledge. Enslaved African American inventors were rarely recognized for their achievements. Typically, their white owners often took credit for their inventions. Although Eli Whitney is lauded for the invention of the cotton gin, he actually got the idea from an enslaved man named Sam, whose father invented a cotton seed removing comb. Sam's and his father's invention was the foundation for Eli Whitney's cotton gin, which mechanized the process of removing seeds from cotton fibers, which was a labor intensive task. The invention not only revolutionized cotton processing, but also contributed to the economic growth of the southern United States, which was heavily relied upon cotton cultivation during the Industrial Revolution. Despite the economic impact, Whitney faced legal challenges over patent infringement and lost much of his profits. Enslaved African Americans were barred from holding patents, meaning only free Black people could own and gain financially from their inventions. Thomas Jennings, a freedman, developed his dry cleaning process called dry scouring as a tailor. His customers often complained of their clothes being ruined by stains, so he started experimenting with different chemicals that could protect the fabric while removing stains. Jennings patented his process named dry scouring on March 3, 1821. Jennings has the distinction of being the first African American patent holder in history. Jennings' invention, along with his business expertise, yielded a significant personal fortune, much of which he put into abolitionist movements in the United States, such as the buying of the freedom of enslaved relatives and friends. Similar to the cotton gin, the mechanical reaper transformed agriculture around the world. It's also credited to a white inventor, the businessman Cyrus McCormick, but as is the case with the cotton gin, the reaper was co invented by an enslaved African American man named Joe Anderson, who worked closely with the McCormicks on the innovation. Joe Anderson, who was born in 1808, was owned by the family of inventor Robert McCormick. McCormick invented a horse-drawn reaper, which is an instrument that gathers and collects crops, but never refined the device. He handed over the design to his son Cyrus, who made significant improvements, but Anderson was right there lockstep with Cyrus. In 1831, McCormick and Anderson debuted their version of the Reaper, with both men showing its capability to speed up harvest collection. The device was patented in 1834. Born into slavery, Benjamin Montgomery invented a steam propeller in the 1850s that could operate effectively in shallow waters. Because Benjamin was doing business on the Mississippi River, he noticed that sometimes the river boats that brought his goods ran into shallow water and got stuck or had to make long trips to avoid shallow areas. This delayed his shipments. Benjamin decided to address the problem and create a propeller that could cut into the water at different angles, thus allowing the boat to navigate more easily through shallow water. At this point in his life, it was generally accepted that nobody, black or white, was as skilled a mechanic as Benjamin Montgomery. If he put his mind to a problem, he came up with a solution. But as an enslaved person, he was cruelly denied a patent for his innovation. Montgomery did, however, become successful and influential. After his freedom was granted after the Civil War, the inventor ran a popular local store, which eventually gave him enough money to purchase the plantation he worked on. Montgomery amassed further wealth and was the first African American official elected in Mississippi. While the light bulb itself was invented by Thomas Edison, the carbon filament that allowed bulbs to last longer was created by African American inventor Lewis Latimer in 1881, working alongside the more celebrated Thomas Edison. Prior to his invention, fast burning materials such as bamboo had been used as a filament. His invention of a method to manufacture carbon filament to make light bulbs mass producible was patented in 1882. After serving in the Union Navy during the Civil War, Latimer leveraged his self taught drafting skills to land a job at a patent law office in Boston as a draftsman. His talent saw him promoted from office assistant to draftsman. There, he worked on many important inventions, including the development of the telephone alongside Alexander Graham Bell. Latimer helped to develop a more efficient transmitter that improved the quality of sound, and his drawings were crucial for securing the telephone patent. Latimer also invented an air conditioning unit and railroad car bathroom. In total, the United States government awarded him patents for 7 of his own inventions. Sarah Good was born into slavery. After receiving her freedom following the Civil War, Good moved from Toledo, Ohio to Chicago, where she and her husband opened a furniture store. This location is where she received the idea for her invention. Most customers of Good's furniture store were working class people who lived in small apartments that couldn't fit a lot of furniture, including beds. As Good heard about the problem from her customers, she set out to help Chicago apartment dwellers with limited space in their apartments. Good invented a folding bed that will become the precursor to the Murphy bed, a hideaway bed inside of the wall closet or cabinet, and eventually the sofa bed. She went on to patent a folding bed in 1885, becoming the fourth African American woman to be granted a patent. In 2012, the Sarah E. Good STEM Academy, a science and math-based school, was opened in the south side of Chicago to honor her contributions. Sarah's patent and other African American inventors were on display at the Paris Exposition of 1900, which featured a section called the Exhibit of American Negroes, organized by Thomas J. Calloway, W.E.B. Du Bois, with the help of Henry Baker's patent research. Good was one of four women identified in the exhibit's showcase of African American inventors. Special note, Henry Baker later served as the assistant patent examiner in the United States Patent Office, where he would chronicle the history of African American inventors. The exhibit of American Negroes was a sociological display within the Palace of Social Economy at the 1900 World's Fair in Paris. The exhibit was a joint effort between Daniel Murray, the Assistant Librarian of Congress, Thomas J. Calloway, an attorney and primary organizer of the exhibit, and W.E.B. Du Bois. The goal of the exhibition was to demonstrate progress and commemorate the lives of African Americans at the turn of the century. Garrett Morgan was an American entrepreneur, inventor, and activist known for his safety innovations in the early 20th century. Nicknamed the Black Edison, Morgan invented a protective safety hood in 1912 that was the forerunner of the modern gas mask that was patented in 1914. This African American inventor was extremely prolific. During his lifetime, Morgan was granted a plethora of patents for everything from traffic lights to hair straighteners and an improved sewing machine. Morgan was also involved in many African American social causes. The first successful leprosy treatment was developed in 1916 by African American chemist and pharmacist Alice Ball, who came up with a pioneering injectable oil treatment at the University of Hawaii, where she received a master's degree. Her investigations of the chamagua oil, a natural remedy for Hansen's disease, leprosy, resulted in it becoming the standard treatment for leprosy until it was replaced by sulfa drugs and antibiotics in the late 1930s and 1940s. These treatments allowed people with the disease to return from isolation to their communities. Tragically, Ball died in a laboratory accident shortly after inventing the treatment. She was just 24 years old. We can only imagine what this gifted chemist would have gone on to achieve if she hadn't passed away so young. African American physician Charles Drew is dubbed the father of blood banking for very good reason. The first Black person to receive a Doctor of Medical Science degree from Columbia University, Drew conducted groundbreaking research during the 1930s, developing efficient methods to process and store large quantities of blood plasma, which was crucial during World War II. His work laid the foundation for modern blood banking, allowing for the long term storage of plasma, which has saved countless lives since then. As the leading authority in the field, he organized and directed blood plasma programs of the United States and Great Britain in the early years of World War II, while also agitating the authorities to stop excluding the blood of African Americans from plasma supply networks. Drew's innovation not only improved transfusion support, but also addressed racial barriers in medicine, making him a pivotal figure in both medical science and civil rights. Also in 1938, Black inventor Frederick McKinley Jones invented mobile refrigeration, enabling perishable goods to be transported over long distances. Before Jones's invention, which consisted of a small compressor unit attached under the truck, salt and ice were used in an unreliable method that often led to spoiling. Jones soon co-founded the Thermo King Corporation, which produced the mobile refrigeration unit. The business went international, and when it sold in 1997, it was achieving more than 1 billion in annual sales. Due to his contributions in refrigeration technology, Jones is called the father of refrigerated transportation and the king of cool. Jones also revolutionized the cinema industry by creating a superior sound system for projectors at the time. During his lifetime, Jones received 61 patents, including 40 for refrigeration technology. This inventor, entrepreneur, engineer was mostly self taught due to his lack of formal education. Jones became the first African American to be awarded the National Medal of Technology and an inductee of the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Otis Boykin notched up to 26 patents during his lifetime, the most important of which was his pacemaker control unit, a development that transformed the control of abnormal heart rhythms and wire precision resistor. Invented by Boykin in 1959, the technology has been used in computers, TVs, and radios, and more. Thanks to the increased reliability of Boykin's new resistor design, paired with their reduced costs, IBM began using them in their computers, and the United States military applied the technology to the production of guided missiles. Over the course of his life, Boykin would earn again a total of 26 patents related to resistors and similar electronic components. Concerned by high levels of property crime in her New York City neighborhood, Marie Van Brittan Brown, who was working as a nurse at the time, created the multi-million-dollar home security industry in 1966 when she invented, along with her husband Albert Brown, an electrician, the world's first CCTV home security system. The couple was granted a patent in 1969 and went on to win numerous awards for the innovation. Brown, arguably one of America's greatest unheralded inventors, was moved to develop her concept of a home security system by her circumstances. She and her husband kept different hours, meaning Marie often found herself at home alone in the evenings. Conscious of high crime as well as sluggish police response times in her neighborhood, she began to consider ways of protecting herself and her home. African American physicist Valerie Thomas developed the 3D illusion transmitter in 1977 while working for NASA and patented the trailblazing device a year later. Thomas's innovation essentially made the invention of a long list of 3D technologies possible, including 3D film, 3D TV, and modern medical imaging. Thomas's invention redefined how we experience storytelling, education, and even medicine. Blockbuster films now transport us to dazzling 3D worlds, while surgeons use the same technology to navigate the human body with unprecedented precision. NASA, too, harnesses her innovation to craft stunning simulations of distant galaxies, turning cosmic exploration into an immense spectacle. Beyond the silver screen, and operating room, Thomas's legacy thrives in classrooms where 3D technology transforms learning into interactive adventure, and in medical training where practitioners refine their skills into lifelike simulations. Her invention didn't just change how we see it, it changed how we experience reality. So she didn't just invent a device, she opened a portal to infinite possibilities. Harlem-born African-American ophthalmologist Patricia Bath overcame prejudice to invent a laser cataract removal device called Laser Facto Probe in 1986 and went on to patent it in 1989. Bath's accomplishments include the following. She became the first female member of the Jules Stein's Eye Institute, the first woman to lead a postgraduate training program in ophthalmology, and the first woman elected to the honorary staff of the UCLA Medical Center. Bath was the first African American to serve as a resident in ophthalmology at New York University. She was also the first African American woman to serve on a staff as a surgeon at the UCLA Medical Center. Bath was the first African American woman doctor to receive a patent for a medical purpose. Bath was not only an ophthalmologist but a humanitarian. A holder of 5 patents, she founded the nonprofit American Institute of the Prevention of Blindness in Washington, D.C. Bath, who passed away in 2019, worked tirelessly to tackle vision loss in the Black community. An ingenious invention that effectively made the internet and other modern IT technologies possible, the Link supercomputer system is the brainchild of Nigerian born computer scientist Philip Emeagwali, who in 1989 came up with the idea of linking multiple microprocessors to turbocharge computing power after observing bees in nature. Emeagwali's most outstanding achievement was the connection machine, a supercomputer that warranted the most praise. In 1989, he programmed over 6,500 computers to produce the fastest computer globally to make up the supercomputer. The supercomputer performed 3.1 billion calculations per second, faster than the theoretical top speed of the Gray supercomputer. Although Emeagwali did not invent the connection machine in 1989, his contribution to it won him the Gordon Bell Prize and the Nobel Prize for Computation. The machine improved previous design built by two computer architects at IBM. As a reminder, African Americans face several barriers when applying for patents. Initially, some masters allowed enslaved people to apply for patents, but masters retained ownership of the patent process and profits. Originally, free persons of color were said to have no federal obstacle to securing patents. However, in 1857, the Dred Scott decision declared that African Americans, free or enslaved, were not citizens and thus could not hold office, vote, or secure patents. The Black Codes were also in effect in many states into the 1860s and limited the ability of African Americans to own properties and patents. Following the American Civil War, African Americans were given equal rights under the law and officially became recognized as citizens, allowing them again to secure patents. Historically, women faced challenges in the patent process as well. The 1790 federal patent process allowed persons, not just men, to seek patents federally. However, many states limited the patent and property rights of women, creating an obstacle. These limitations decreased starting in 1839 and over the following decades. However, limitations to higher education institutions that specialize in scientific training were still a barrier. Financial backing and informal patent assistance were also both limited when it came to women's inventions as compared to men's, making the process of obtaining a patent more difficult. However, as always, we as a people learn to overcome because of our perseverance and fortitude. Our accomplishments and achievements in the American patent process can't be denied. However, they can be forgotten if we don't make learning history a priority. Why is this information about Black inventors important? Because we need to know the accomplishments of those who came before us. These amazing African American inventors are designed to be role models for those who are coming after them. Their success against all odds should demonstrate to us as a people what we're capable of. Our past accomplishments absolutely dictate our future potential and abilities. We should continue carrying the torch they left before us as we continue to walk in excellence as our ancestors did. Another reason we need to be reminded of Black inventors is to understand how we helped build this country. Oftentimes, you hear Black people say we built this country. However, when we say this with our chest poked out, how can this argument be supported? Now you can give meaningful examples of exceptional leaders and innovators from the African American community. Also, people who don't look like us love to say Black people are lazy and need to pick themselves up by their bootstraps. Becoming familiar with the achievements of Black innovators and leaders in this country allows us to shut down any arguments against our community because what is being said isn't based on facts, but deep seated bias. Once again, our innovation and inventions had a major impact on the Industrial Revolution. Our brilliance was on full display. Thus, it's time to wake up and remember who we are. Our past is important. If we built this nation for our oppressors, imagine what we can do collectively as a people, and especially in the rebuilding of Africa once again. Stop letting the ruling class today reduce our contributions to just being athletes and entertainers that they control. Thus, the reason when one of them speaks up about racial inequalities, they're told, for example, to shut up and dribble. Athletes and entertainers can't build a nation. They can only lull our people to sleep like they've done for the last 25 to 30 years. We are builders, creators, innovators of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We are Black and we are genius. Family, it's time for the Black community to learn, know, and understand our story. We need to commit to unlearning and relearning history with our contributions and achievements being the priority and being at the forefront. With that in mind, Black America, it's time to wake up. We need to have a real conversation about what's going on in the United States and globally. Things are constantly changing around us. We can see the powers that should not be are pushing for a new norm or a new world order. This channel was created to introduce Black Americans to present day truth so we as a people won't be left in the dark about what's really happening. This knowledge could be the difference between life and death. See you on the inside. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. This is the Elect Lady signing off for now. Thank you.